The bright LED panels of Nexacor's main boardroom glared overhead that Thursday morning. I smoothed the sleeve of my navy jacket, feeling oddly out of place, amid the tailored designer suits assembling for CEO Daniel Hart's landmark announcement. After 17 years as Nexacor's senior systems architect, I should have been used to these corporate events. Yet today carried a different weight. My name is Laura Singh, and I've quietly dedicated my career to transforming microchip architecture, though few outside my field would recognize my name. While many colleagues chase titles and executive offices, I focused on pioneering designs, filing patent after patent for technology set to redefine high-performance computing. But in corporate life, brilliance often takes a back seat. More often, it's about who spins the better narrative. Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. Daniel's crisp baritone cut through the chatter. At 48, he looked every inch the Toronto tech mogul. Sleek charcoal suit, artfully styled silver hair, and the easy charisma that wooed investors time after time. Today is a pivotal day for Nexacor. The energy in the room shifted as hundreds of staff leaned forward. Whispers of a major business move had swirled for weeks, but no one had the details. I stayed in my familiar place near the back, laptop open to monitor the simulation results on my latest chipset prototype. I'm thrilled to announce Nexacor is merging with Titan Microsystems in a $2 billion zero-cents deal. Daniel's voice rang with triumph. This merger will establish us as the largest chip design firm in North America. Thunderous applause broke out across the room. I stayed silent, my thoughts spinning. Titan was our fiercest rival, notorious for cutthroat strategies and ethically gray research methods. Worse, they'd spent years trying and failing to duplicate the proprietary architecture I'd developed. This merger embodies everything Nexacor stands for: bold vision, sharp strategy, and real innovation, Daniel continued, sweeping his gaze over the crowd. His eyes stopped on me, and his polished smile turned colder. Unlike certain so-called innovations that drain company resources, he said, gesturing subtly toward my section of the room, we've all witnessed employees who buried themselves in laps, hoarding patents like collectibles, instead of driving real value for our shareholders. A ripple of laughter spread through the crowd. I held my expression steady, even as heat crept up my neck under my colleagues' stares. Daniel had never forgiven me for refusing to greenlight a flawed version of our quantum core interface last year, despite his direct orders. In his world, nothing mattered more than the stock price. Mattered more than scientific integrity. The future belongs to those who think big and refuse to play it safe, Daniel declared, his voice swelling with conviction. That's why Titan Microsystems is the perfect partner. Their CEO, Eric DeLuca, shares our hunger for bold expansion and market leadership. As if on cue, Eric DeLuca stepped onto the stage. Tall, sharply dressed, and exuding polished confidence, he radiated the aura of corporate conquest. Thank you, Daniel. I've respected Nexacor's position in the industry for years, and especially your unique microchip designs. Together, we'll define the next era of computing. I shut my laptop gently. They truly had no idea what they were about to face. You see, Daniel's biggest flaw was believing that quiet people lacked power. He'd never bothered to study the fine print of those useless patents he'd dismissed so easily. Walking back toward my lab after the announcement, I heard quick footsteps behind me. Laura. It was Amir Patel, my former research partner and now Nexacor's chief technology officer. Amir had always been one of the few who understood the real value behind my work. Quite an announcement, I said, tapping in my lab access code. Amir hesitated. Listen. I tried to convince Daniel that he needs to look closely at your patent portfolio before finalizing this merger, but he refused. He thinks it's all routine company IP. I allowed a small smile. That's fascinating, considering that most of my patents were never assigned to Nexacor. Amir's brows shot up. Wait, what do you mean? When I joined Nexacor, I negotiated a unique agreement. Any patents I created on my personal time and with my own equipment remained my sole property. The company only holds limited licensing rights. I started pulling up directories on my computer. Daniel never bothered to read the details. He simply assumed. Amir stared at me, realization dawning. But that means— Yes, I said calmly. The quantum core interface Titan wants so desperately, the adaptive routing algorithms, the neural architecture enhancements, they're all protected as my personal intellectual property, and I've never agreed to transfer those rights to anyone. Amir sank into the nearest chair. Laura, this entire merger hinges on Titan gaining access to that technology. Titan's whole integration plan is counting on it. I know, I continued typing, retrieving files I'd quietly prepared months ago when merger rumors first surfaced. And in 2 weeks, when the due diligence team finally examines the real contracts, patent filings, they'll realize that their $2 billion 0-cents merger is worthless without my signature. Daniel's going to lose it, Amir whispered. Daniel should have read the agreements, I said coolly. He was too busy scoffing at my useless patents to check what they actually protected. Over the next week, I watched the merger machine roar ahead. Press releases sang praises of perfect synergy and unmatched innovation. Daniel gave interviews boasting about consolidating the best technology in the industry. Meanwhile, I kept working quietly in my lab, biding my time for the storm I knew would come. It arrived precisely 13 days after the announcement. I was running stress simulations on a new microchip design when my phone vibrated with an urgent message summoning me to the main conference room. As I approached, the sound of raised voices spilled into the hallway. Inside, Daniel was striding back and forth like a trapped animal, his immaculate silver hair now tousled and damp with sweat. Eric DeLuca sat rigid at the table, his expression dark and thunderous. Around them, lawyers and executives rifled through stacks of documents, faces etched with anxiety. "Async," said Miss Bernard, one of Titan Microsystems' attorneys, looking strained. "We've been reviewing the patent assignments for Nexacor's core technology portfolio. There seems to be a complication." "A complication?" Eric's voice sliced the air like a blade. "The entire quantum core interface appears to be registered to her personally, not to Nexacor." Daniel wheeled on me, his face red. "What sort of stunt is this? Those patents belong to the company." I calmly pulled a folder from my bag, the same contract I'd negotiated 17 years ago when Nexacor was desperate to recruit top engineering talent. "Actually, they don't. My contract states that any inventions I create with my own resources and time remain my personal intellectual property. Nexacor has usage rights, but not ownership." "That's absurd," Daniel stammered. "No one has deals like that." "You signed it yourself," I said quietly, "though you apparently never read it. Just like you never truly understood the technology you're trying to sell." "Name your price," Eric DeLuca said suddenly, leaning forward. "Everyone has one." I faced him squarely. "My price? It's something neither of you can afford. Respect for real innovation." "You'll never work in this industry again," Daniel snapped, the last of his corporate polish cracking. I let out a quiet laugh. "I don't work for the industry, Daniel. I work for science. And after today, I'll keep doing that somewhere my work is actually valued. If you're as curious as I am about how this standoff ends and how far I'm willing to go to protect my inventions, don't forget to subscribe and stay tuned for the next chapter of my story." As if on cue, my phone buzzed. A new message popped up from the Canadian Innovation Council confirming my appointment as their new Director of Quantum Computing Initiatives. I'd submitted my resignation letter to Nexacor earlier that morning. "Of course you planned this," Daniel accused, eyes blazing as the realization finally struck him. "No, Daniel, you planned this the moment you tried to sell technology you never owned. I'm just making sure it stays in the hands of people who will use it responsibly." I rose from my chair, smoothing the front of my blazer. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I have some patents to review. Real ones, not worthless ones." Walking out of that glass conference room, I felt lighter than I had in years. Sometimes, the quietest person in the room is the one who deserves your closest attention. Because while others talk about making history, we're busy writing it. The merger announcement was officially retracted the following day. Nexacor's stock price went into a tailspin. Daniel resigned under intense pressure from the board. But for me, the real story was only beginning. News swept through Canada's tech circles like a shockwave. $2 billion 0 cents, Titan, Nexacore, merger collapses, engineer holds key patents, not company, screamed the headlines. Within hours, my inbox overflowed with messages from journalists, analysts, and more importantly, other engineers sharing stories of how corporations had tried to exploit their innovations. My modest downtown Toronto apartment became a quiet refuge as the chaos unfolded. The morning after the collapse, I sat sipping green tea, calmly watching Nexacore's stock tumble across my laptop screen. A piece of me felt sorrow, not for Daniel or the failed merger, but for the hundreds of employees now left uncertain about their futures. "You've kicked off quite a revolution," Amir said, dropping into my living room chair. He carried a paper bag of fresh bagels and 2 coffees, a kind of peace offering. "The board's in total meltdown. Daniel's resignation letter blames everyone but himself, naturally." I nodded and pulled up a document on my screen. I expected as much. "That's why I prepared this." I turned the laptop toward him, revealing a detailed business plan for a new research institute dedicated to ethical tech development. No frantic deadlines, no sacrificing quality for quarterly profits. Amir leaned forward, studying it. "You're going to need funding, facilities." "Already in place," I said with a small smile. Remember Eric DeLuca's "Everyone Has a Price" speech? He was right, but not in the way he thought. My price was freedom. I opened another file, the terms of my new role at the Canadian Innovation Council, including a groundbreaking public, private, personal partnership. My patents will be safe and finally used for the right reasons, licensed for open research, with any commercial use tightly regulated to ensure ethical development. Several venture capital firms have already reached out, I continued, glancing at Amir. They finally see the value of long-term, responsible innovation. But what mattered even more, I added, pulling up my email, is this. My inbox was overflowing with dozens of messages from engineers and researchers across the tech world. We're not alone anymore. The following weeks passed in a whirlwind. While Nexacore scrambled to steady itself without my technology, I was laying the foundation for something new. The Singh Institute for Ethical Innovation took shape in a converted brick warehouse on Toronto's eastern waterfront. Our mission was simple yet powerful: advance cutting-edge technology while safeguarding humanity's interests. But tech giants never fade quietly. Even after his resignation, Daniel Hart wasn't finished trying to undermine me. "There's a legal notice for you," my assistant told me one morning, 3 months after the merger collapse. The documents alleged patent infringement, claiming my inventions were built upon prior Nexacore research. I actually laughed. Reaching into my desk drawer, I pulled out a well-worn leather notebook. My graduate research journal, every page notarized and dated. "They should have done their homework," I told my assistant, flipping through diagrams and calculations. Every concept, every piece of my architecture, documented years before I ever set foot in Nexacore. The lawsuit was dismissed within weeks, but it revealed something telling. It showed how desperate the old guard had become. The industry was shifting beneath their feet and they were losing control. My phone buzzed on the workbench beside me. A message popped up from Leila Hassan, a former Nexacore engineer who joined my institute. "Laura, you need to see this. Daniel speaking at the Technology Futures Summit." I pulled up the live stream. Daniel, looking noticeably less polished than in his CEO days, was mid-rant. "These so-called ethical innovation advocates are killing North American competitiveness," he shouted. "We have to move fast, even if it means breaking things." I grinned and typed back to Leila. "Speaking of breaking things, how's the quantum core stability testing going?" "Perfect," she replied. "Your original design works exactly as documented. Titan's rushed version would have failed catastrophically in under a year." That validation meant everything. While Daniel raged about lost profits, we were proving that ethical innovation wasn't just possible, it was unstoppable. The Singh Institute's first patents were already being licensed to responsible manufacturers. 6 months after the collapse, I stood on a different stage, speaking to a packed auditorium at the University of Toronto. Innovation isn't just about being first, I told eager faces. It's about being right, about creating technology that serves people, not just shareholders. The response was overwhelming. Applications to join our teams poured in. Even more meaningful was seeing other companies adopt our ethical development framework. The industry was evolving. Exactly 1 year after Daniel Hart's failed merger announcement, an unexpected visitor appeared in my office. It was Eric DeLuca. No longer with Titan Microsystems, he looked older, his confident edge softened. I was wrong, he admitted. Not just about the merger, but about how we approached innovation. Your institute's results, we could never have matched them with our rush-to-market strategy. I gestured for him to sit. Eric, it was never just about technology, I said. It's the philosophy behind it. Chase quick wins, ignore long-term responsibility, and you lose both. He nodded slowly. That's why I'm here. I've started a new venture capital firm. We want to invest in responsible innovation. No pressure for fast exits, no rushing half-finished products out the door. He hesitated. Would you consider being on our advisory board? I studied him carefully. On one condition, we establish a fund for independent researchers to help others protect their ideas the way I protected mine. The agreement we made that day reshaped the industry's funding landscape. The Independent Innovation Protection Fund became a lifeline for inventors determined to guard their work from corporate exploitation. As for Daniel, he tried launching a flashy new startup, but investors had grown cautious. Last I heard, he was writing a book about disruptive leadership, though I doubt it mentions how his own leadership was disrupted. Nexacore survived but was transformed. The board appointed Amir as CEO, and he swiftly implemented a comprehensive ethical innovation policy. My patents are still licensed to Nexacore, but now under strict quality controls. The Singh Institute kept growing. We expanded into sustainable computing, medical AI, and new materials research. Our ethical framework became a benchmark across the industry. But more than that, we built a community where brilliant minds could work without fear of corporate retaliation. Sometimes, late at night, I still find myself in the lab, just like in my Nexacore days. But now, when I look through the glass walls, I see others working by choice, driven by curiosity rather than fear. On my desk sits a framed copy of the contract I negotiated 17 years ago. Next to it is a photo from the Singh Institute's opening day, a diverse team of engineers and scientists who left corporate jobs to join our mission. Last week, a young engineer asked me if I regretted not selling my patents for what could have been hundreds of millions. I simply showed her our latest breakthrough, a sustainable computing architecture projected to reduce global data center energy use by 60%. Some things, I told her, are worth far more than money. The true value of innovation isn't measured in patents or profits, it's measured in the good it does. As I write this from my office overlooking our growing campus, I remember that day in Nexacore's boardroom when Daniel mocked my worthless patents. He never understood that real worth isn't about stock prices or mergers, it's about impact, lives improved, and problems solved. The revolution I helped ignite wasn't just about patents or power. It was about proving that quiet determination can triumph over loud arrogance, and that ethical innovation can outperform reckless ambition. Today, when people hear the name Laura Singh, they don't think of the quiet engineer who disrupted a $2 billion zero-cents merger. They think of someone who helped transform how an entire industry views innovation. And that legacy means more than any patent or revenge ever could. The next generation will face their own Daniel Harts, the same pressure to compromise, but now they have a choice, a way to protect their principles and their ideas. Sometimes, the greatest victory isn't defeating your rivals. It's changing the rules so they can't win at all. And that's a patent worth protecting. If my story resonates with you, share your thoughts below. I'd love your support. Tell me how you'd stand up for your principles. Remember, protect your ideas, stay true to your values, and never let loud voices drown out quiet innovation. Together, we can redefine what progress truly means. They called me the family disappointment, not always to my face, but I heard it in whispers.